So I wanted to do a little quick video following up on a post from a couple of days ago where I was talking about the value of heroes. And, this comes at a time when a lot of what we talk about in terms of people and the history of people is subject to revisionist history. And, for those of you who are not familiar with the term, revisionist history is when people who have the ability to retell a narrative are able to go back and tell a different version of the history of someone or something from a perspective that fits their own agenda. And, I think that we're at a time now where we're seeing that happen more and more. And before I get started with this, let me just say this has nothing to do with Michael Jackson, because I know some people might think that's what that is. I haven't even seen that Finding Neverland documentary, and I'm not interested in seeing it, because I already have my perspective on all that stuff. But I do want to say that I'm speaking more to examples that we've seen with individuals in the last 10 or 15 years, men like Dr. King and like Malcolm X, people who, for the most part, had their legacies established, and people knew who they were, the work they did, and who they did that work for, and what their motivations were. And through a lot of the, documentaries that might have been produced in the last 15 years, or even books, there's been this reimagining of what these people stood for and what their ideas were all about. And part of that reimagining is that it changes the way that most of us tend to see these individuals. And this can be very dangerous because, our heroes and the ideas of our heroes set our mental models and our value systems. And let me explain what I mean by that. So on the value system side, the type of people that you choose as heroes reflect the things that are most important to you. So, for example, if all of your heroes are celebrities, then that means that being a celebrity will be part of what you find in terms of a value. Or if all of the people that you admire are heroes are people who are rich and famous, well, then you're saying that being rich is a value and something that's important to you. Or if all the people that you choose to look at as heroes are revolutionaries, then that means that the people and things that you admire most are revolutionary ideas. And that means that revolutionary thought is part of your value system. So your values are shaped a lot of times by the people that you decide to brand and label as heroes. And in terms of the mental models part, your heroes become your ideas for what you want to try to accomplish and achieve. And they also set your ethical framework for what you think is the correct way to go about doing things in your world. And this has a lot to do with, why you look at certain people as heroes, why you don't look at other people as heroes, and why it's important for some people to tell you who your heroes can be and who they can't be. And, for Black people in particular, and Black men in particular, when you look at a lot of who can be our heroes are often boiled down to maybe 5 or 6 individuals. And we usually see these people highlighted a lot during Black History Month. So we'll see, of course, there'll be something about Dr. King. And of course, there'll be something about Malcolm X, although, 20 years ago, you wouldn't even see Malcolm X. And, there'll be something about Frederick Douglass. And there's nothing wrong with any of those individuals, but it does create a narrowing of the scope in terms of what our heroes can be and what kind of attention to detail is being put on those individuals. So part of the reason for that post about knowing who your heroes are and doing the primary research yourself is so that you can expand your idea of what your heroes can be and who they can look like and who they can be. One of the things that, I've often talked with people about, one of the reasons why I'm not a big fan of the civil rights movies that get made every, 3 or 4 years, that always talk about, the time frame around Dr. King and the Selma movies and things like that, is that I find that they really ignore a lot of other people that were very prominent during that time. One example of that is Kwame Ture, also known as Stokely Carmichael. Just very prominent in SNCC, connected to work with the Black Panther Party, although he wasn't a member. Also someone who was very instrumental in starting African Liberation Day, and a person who really advocated for the necessity of Black people to form and support organizational models as opposed to operating kind of in a individual role, which is a lot of what we see happening today. And that's just a short and quick overview. The reality is that if you want to learn more about Kwame Ture, there's an autobiography that he wrote that is an excellent resource to start with. But I'm saying this to say is that there's so many more heroes that we have at our disposal, and it's incumbent on all of us to make sure that you don't let people tell you who your heroes can and can't be unless you've done the primary research to know who you want those people to be. And that's really my encouragement with this video. When I started writing the Coaching for Black Men books, in my mind I had about 40 different men that I wanted to highlight in the course of those books. And so far I've highlighted 6 of them. So I got some work to do. And the reality is that I probably won't be able to talk about all 40 of those people in those books. But I knew that there were a lot of different types of Black men that I wanted to push to the forefront. And many of those are people that I would consider to be heroes, and some, obviously more so than others, but they're all a part of that continuous line of heroism. And, we have this throughout the history of our people. We don't have to make up any heroes or make up any fictitious places to try to explain the ideas of what Black excellence is all about. I was driving on the highway and I saw someone, the license plate had Wakanda on it. And that made me laugh because, Wakanda's not a real place. And, it's okay to admire ideas like that. But the reality is that, Black people have been making kingdoms since the beginning of time. And we have a lot of real life examples that we could talk about. And we have a lot of real life heroes that we can talk about. We don't have to make everything about, the idea of a Black Panther or a Shuri or a Killmonger. We have real heroes. We have a Kwame Nkrumah. We have a Shaka Zulu. We have a Ya Asantewaa. We have a Queen Nzinga. We got people like Idi Amin, if that's, the kind of stuff that you're into. But whatever that case may be, we owe it to ourselves. And certainly we owe it to our children to make sure that we're setting the ideas for who we think is valuable to be a hero. And so that's my encouragement, once again, with this piece, is just to really take some time to do your own primary research. Don't let people tell you what somebody was all about or what they stood for or who they worked with or what was important to them. You can do that. You can do that and do that research yourself. You can go to the library. You can get the books. You can go to the bookstores. You could use the internet, although that's probably not the best resource because a lot of what you get on the internet is someone else's opinion of something as opposed to the primary research. But that's a whole other issue all by itself. Once again, do that work yourself. People are not going to give you the tools for your own liberation, and that's your own mental liberation, that's your own spiritual liberation, and that's your own historical liberation. And you're gonna have to do that work yourself, and you're gonna have to encourage your children to do that too. So that's just the purpose of this quick message. I hope that people find value in this, and it encourages them to do some more research into some of the names of the ancestors that I mentioned during the